there is a God, and give my father credit not just for believing in him, but for believing that God gives us the opportunity to be able to do what we need to do to survive and to flourish. My father was 16 years old when the Germans came through his city in Poland, the city of Krasnobrod, and it was Yom Kippur. And his father, my grandfather, Rabbi Avraham Bergstein, Abraham Bergstein, was the chazan for the community. Immediately, they shot the 10 oldest looking men, guys like me with white beards. And then they ordered the next 100 elderly looking people, and my grandfather was one of them, out into the adjacent yard. They gave them shovels and ordered them to start digging. They had them stripped, and they were going to be shot by a firing squad. At the very last moment, a Polish officer, he was Polish or Jewish, I don't know, but I was told he was a Polish officer, came with a white flag, and from what I remember, he was riding a horse, and he said, "Halt, according to the Geneva Convention, one is not allowed to kill civilians during wartime." The German in charge was not SS, he was Wehrmacht, the regular army, so he accepted the critique. He says, okay, and he had everybody, including my grandfather, run across the field naked into the woods, and he shot over their heads. My father saw this and knew what the Germans were about, since he was, from the time he was 14, he had read Mein Kampf, Hitler's book about his determination to exterminate the Jews. He saw the newsreels that were publicized in Poland throughout the mid-30s and late 30s. For a few cents, you could go into the movie theater and see what's going on in the world. And he actually understood Hitler's speeches because, of course, Yiddish is similar to German. And it was clear the hold he had upon the Germans and his determination to kill the Jews. So at first, the Germans were there, then the Russians came in. When the Russians evacuated, because the border was changing every few weeks, they'd agreed on different boundaries, and the Russians decided to evacuate and leave the Germans in control. So the last truck going out of Krasnobrod, my father said he took the dry goods. My grandmother's store had been looted, and he saved whatever he could from the hands of looters. And he put it in, it was in 3 duffel bags. He put it on the truck, put his brother, Riva Reuven, later known as Leah Rosenson, on the truck. He jumped on the truck, and he said, as the truck was leaving, he saw his whole life flash in front of him. And he knew if he didn't do anything, at that moment he would die by the Germans. And so he and Rivala arrived Friday night in a place called Bialystok. People in Bialystok could not understand how 2 Jewish boys, religious boys, with yarmulkes, could be traveling on Shabbos. They didn't understand, they hadn't tasted what the war was like, and that this was a war of extermination. They had to stay in the homes of the less religious cousins. the Bergstein clan in Bialystok. A month later, our grandparents joined them, and shortly thereafter, the Russians evacuated all the immigrants to a place called Archangelsk, Archangel. About 30,000 Jews were deported there. It's near the Arctic Circle, with areas so pristine that no human being had ever walked those places. And they were supposed to cut trees for wood, for lumber, and if they didn't cut the trees, they wouldn't have any food to eat. My father, despite being 16 at the time, cut 4 times as many trees as a normal full-grown adult. And from that moment on, every day, he would fill 4 norms and was given 4 times the bread. And that's how he survived. He was a slave of the Russians for close to 6 years, until he met my mother. My mother was pregnant with me when my father and mother saw that in Poland there was nothing left to go back to. They were killing Jews every day in the open if they dared come back to their homes. So they burnt their papers, claimed that they had no country to go back to, and got a ride into Berlin, into the American section. And there they were transferred from there to the American section in Germany, in central Germany. They opened up a new place for immigrants, for people who were refugees, in a city called Eschwege. And there, my mother suddenly felt the need to go to the hospital. Sunday morning, June 16th, 1946. The doctors reported that I was coming out feet first, and they were going to have to do a cesarean section. My father, of course, feared having my mother operated by German doctors just a year after the war, after the murder of 6 million Jews, ran into the lager, ran into the camp, got together a million of Jews, and they started saying Tehillim. My father returned to my mother, who was already born. I had turned around, and I was born head first, normally. And I was the first Bechor, the first Pidyon Haben in that refugee camp. Do you believe in God? I do. So I say, well, everything's just a coincidence. Yes, it's coincidental. My father read Mein Kampf when he was 14 and saw what Hitler was about to do, and saw Hitler's men murder people on Yom Kippur for no reason other than they were Jewish. And took the first opportunity he could to leave so that he shouldn't be killed by them. And then took whatever opportunity he could to survive in the most brutal conditions, not imaginable because the German camps were worse. But in Siberia and in Middle Asia, the conditions weren't that much better. He worked like a fiend, but realized that he was given opportunities to survive. And here, his firstborn was about to be born. My father had no way of doing anything about it. So what did he do? He turned to God. And I turned around through the prayers of those 10 men. They weren't Hasidim with long beards and payas. 10 Jews who survived the Holocaust said Tehillim for my mother, and I was born normally. And so I have to thank God for all the opportunities, and for my father the wisdom to understand that when you can't do anything about it, you must turn to God and pray. And so should we. And this today is my birthday, my 73rd birthday, in English, secular. But the secular birthday is also significant. So all those who see this video, I wish you good health. You should have good children. They should do good things. You should have lots of nachas from them. They should do good things as they are defined by the Torah, not defined by whim and desire. And you should have the necessary means to be able to support them in an honorable way. And God should grant you all good health and the ability to do good things, always.